that the Freemasons and the Jews run the banks and therefore run the world.
The Masons became great targets in part by refusing to respond to their critics.
It's easy to impart to somebody an evil secret society if that person's not going to tell you what the truth is. They rose above it. But it just played into these people's hands.
And I think it goes back to our need to know. If something is kept secret from us, and then we combine that with our inclination to see negative before positive, then we are going to develop a negative story about something we don't understand. And you hear something negative about someone who's a Freemason, boom, we're gone. We're off to the races, and a Freemason is the devil incarnate.
In The Lost Symbol, Professor Langdon recalls his years writing about the rich traditions of the Masons. He also acknowledges they've been accused of worshiping the devil and plotting a one-world government. An internet search will quickly reveal the book is right.
President Bush, President Clinton were both members of the Skull and Bones, a secret society with Masonic roots. Reagan was adopted as an honorary Mason, as were Truman. It goes along pretty strong lines. And so, yes, it perpetuates.
Conspiracy theorists point to the all-seeing eye found on the dollar bill as a symbol of this new world order. It was put there by a Mason, President Franklin Roosevelt. The truth is, the new world order isn't new. As the book depicts, the Founding Fathers created one. The evidence is right there on the Great Seal. Below the all-seeing eye and the pyramid are the words Novus Ordo Seclorum.
It means the new order of the ages. And that's pretty important because the new order of the ages is a republic, a representative form of government, and not a monarchy, which was the old order of the ages.
They wanted a new world order, a new Atlantis, where freedom prevailed.
Brown also describes how this new world order, however, posed a threat to clergy leaders who feared a loss of power and influence.
Brown brought out in Angels and Demons the struggle between light and dark, and what he called light and dark was reason, logic, and scientific endeavor as being mankind's salvation, not superstition and spirituality.
Since then, religious groups have fought back with claims that the Masons were really only seeking a new form of global domination.
Communism would be a perfect example in modern times. Religion is abolished. Spirituality is looked at as nothing but a superstition. Big Brother and the government will take care of us from cradle to grave.
The running gag in the fraternity is that we'll get right on that New World Order takeover plan just as soon as we can schedule the New World Order takeover plan fish fry. No, we're not taking over the world.
The belief in these and other conspiracies runs deep in our country because sometimes they turn out to be true. In Dan Brown's The Lost Symbol, CIA officials monitor cell phone conversations and email messages. How realistic is this? Are we being watched like the characters in The Lost Symbol?
Almost all of us carry a cell phone. Well, obviously, when you speak on a cell phone, whatever you're saying goes out into the ether. And if it's out there, somebody can grab it and catch it and try and understand it. Even though you may be speaking another language, you've got some code words in there to conceal things. Somebody can analyze that. And somebody can make sense out of what you're saying. And this is true for any kind of communication. Once it goes into the ether and it can be captured by somebody, it can probably be understood.
Brown's CIA officers may have been using a secret global surveillance network called Echelon. For the past 30 years, it has been used to eavesdrop on foreign countries, terrorist groups, and drug cartels. In the process, Echelon's computers have also captured virtually every electronic conversation around the world.
Echelon is reportedly intercepts particularly satellite communications that go by way of satellite. And therefore, whether they're government or corporate or encrypted or not encrypted, the allegation is that the Americans, NSA, are eavesdropping on all sorts of conversations.
Over the years, the Echelon system has been accused of targeting more than just the bad guys. During the Vietnam War, the Echelon system reportedly spied on anti-war protests. In the 1990s, several European governments claimed Echelon was being used for economic espionage. It's a claim refuted by the CIA.
I will tell you that from my years in intelligence, we were never directed, nor would we accept to be directed, to collect intelligence on a private company or private firm in order to bring it back and give it to a private firm here.
Conspiracies arise from secrecy and suspicion, and no one has been at the center of more conspiratorial controversy than the Masons. In The Lost Symbol, Dan Brown portrays the Masons as being some of the most powerful men in the country. Is that true? The fact is, 14 past U.S. presidents were known Freemasons, nearly 1/3 of the total. In addition, at least 35 Supreme Court justices, as well as countless congressmen, have sworn to uphold the Masonic oaths. Recent Masonic members of Congress have included Senators Trent Lott from Mississippi, Congressman Eric Cantor from Virginia, and Congressman Joe Wilson from South Carolina.
It's amazing just how much history has been moved by Freemasonry and what great names that we all recognize have been involved as members of the fraternity.
In the book, Brown depicts Freemasonry, which is also called the craft, as tracing its roots back to the stonemasons who built the great cathedrals of Europe. What the book doesn't address is that to build these architectural masterpieces, Masons needed to understand the latest scientific methods of the day, including physics, geometry, and mathematics. This intimate connection to both religious and secular power enabled the Masons as a group to develop a unique perspective.
Freemasonry is not interested in dogma because it's not a religious organization. It doesn't have a creed of faith. It's the means for people who do have dogmas and who do have creeds of faith to meet as human beings, as brothers.
The group adopted as symbols the tools and terminology of their trade. Its universal sign includes a square and a compass. Members are described as apprentices or master masons. Meetings are held in a lodge, a word derived from the temporary buildings stonemasons set up at their construction sites. The book's professor is led to the George Washington Masonic Memorial. Does such a place exist? Yes. It's a 333-foot tall building in Alexandria, Virginia. It was built in the 1920s to honor George Washington, who was the master mason at the local lodge. In the book, Professor Langdon likens the Masons to a modern corporation, and that they both keep their methods and rituals secret.
The Masons are not a secret society. They're a society with secrets.
If everybody knew the secret handshakes or the secret words, then everybody would be taken advantage of the fraternity. And that's plagued the fraternity for well over 200 years.
In The Lost Symbol, Brown depicts Freemasonry as popular with many of our founding fathers. Brown is correct. These men and their ancestors had come from Europe, where society was torn apart by religious warfare. They were determined not to make the same mistake in this new country.
For many of the founding fathers, Masonry was an important part of their lives. I think an extension of Enlightenment ideas. It's the age of reason. It's essentially trying to, move society, out of the old ways and put it on what they thought, was a better path for the future.
Today, we consider freedom of speech a cornerstone of our Constitution. But in the 18th century, talking this way could have gotten you killed. This forced the Masons to meet secretly in taverns and basements.
Freemasons are talking about democracy or liberty or self-determination or free speech. Well, that could be perceived as a threat to an aristocracy, to a king, to an emperor, to a church that has power.
The book depicts our forefathers wanting to establish a new country on the principles of scientific advancement, not religious dogma. That is also true. But were most of these men deists, as the novel describes?
The religious beliefs